Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the students of Europe Hotel School. In our world, in the world of hospitality, we're not just defined by how we handle our successes, but really by how we recover from a crisis. Today, we're going to break down the essential framework for that recovery, looking at how we move from that initial chaos to a stronger, more resilient future. You know what it's like. After the adrenaline of a crisis finally fades, that first instinct is always to just rush, right? To fix everything, to reopen, to get back to normal as fast as possible. But this quote, it really gets to the heart of a huge mistake that so many leaders make. See, a true, lasting recovery, it's not about speed, it's about depth. It all starts with a quiet, deliberate process of really understanding what's changed. All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to explore the mindset of recovery itself, what I call its quiet complexity. Then, we'll get down to business with honest assessment. After that, we'll focus on the most critical piece of the puzzle, the human core. Then we'll cover the nuts and bolts of relaunching operations. And finally, we'll tie it all together with the ultimate goal, rebuilding trust and resilience.
Okay, so let's dive right into our first section, the quiet complexity. After all the noise of a crisis dies down, a totally different kind of challenge emerges. It's way less about immediate frantic action and much more about thoughtful, deliberate restoration. The chaos might be over, but believe me, the really complex work, that's just getting started.
So what do we even mean by recovery in a hotel? I mean, it's way more than just putting out the fire. This definition here, it highlights three absolutely crucial things: restoring stability to your property, rebuilding confidence with both your guests and your staff, and then rediscovering your operational rhythm. Think of it this way. It's not like flipping a switch back to on. It's a real methodical process. And this complexity, it comes from the fact that a crisis leaves behind damage you can't always see. I mean, sure, you might have physical repairs to do, of course, but the real challenges, they're often hiding just beneath the surface, in your digital systems that have gone haywire, and most importantly, in the emotions of both your guests and your team. A great recovery plan has to tackle all three of those layers. And that's the perfect lead-in to our second section, honest assessment. Because you just can't rebuild on a shaky foundation. Like the subtitle says, this entire phase is about making decisions based on reality, not on what you hope or assume to be true. This is where the practical work really begins. So, how do we actually do that? How do we get to that ground truth? Well, it's a three-step process. Step one is the physical walkthrough. You've got to see every corner of the property, from back of house to the penthouse suite. Step two is a deep dive into all your operational systems, your tech. And step three is all about your people, getting honest, unfiltered updates from every single one of your department heads. This is not a top-down thing. It's about working together to build a complete, accurate picture.
Now let's zoom in on that second step for a second, the systems review. This goes so much further than just checking if the Wi-Fi is working. We're talking about the hotel's entire digital nervous system. Are your booking platforms talking to your billing systems correctly? Is the room status information up to the minute accurate? You gotta understand, a tiny little glitch in one of these systems can snowball into a massive guest nightmare, completely shattering trust when it's at its most fragile.
All right, we've looked at the bricks and mortar, we've checked the tech. Now it's time to focus on what really makes or breaks a hotel, the human core. Section 3 is all about navigating the emotional recovery. Because at the end of the day, hospitality isn't about rooms and systems. It's about people.
And what you see here is this really critical balancing act for any leader. Look at the two sides. Your guests, they need transparency, reassurance, and support. At the exact same time, your employees need to feel heard, valued, and supported. And these are absolutely two sides of the same coin. Because let's be real, you can't possibly create a warm, reassuring space for your guests if your own team is feeling anxious and ignored. It just doesn't work.
So when you're talking to guests during a recovery, there is one word that is everything: transparency. It is always better to be honest about a limitation, our spa is only operating at 50% capacity, than it is to overpromise and underdeliver. Honest information manages their expectations, and it's the very first block you lay in rebuilding that fragile trust.
And of course, this is so important. We have to turn that focus inward. You have to remember, your team went through this crisis too. Their emotional recovery is not some secondary issue. It's every bit as vital as fixing the plumbing. An exhausted, unsupported team simply cannot deliver the kind of empathetic, high-level service that a recovery demands.
Okay, so we've got the assessment down, we're thinking about our people. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Section 4,
relaunching operations. Now it's time to tackle the complex logistics of actually restoring your hotel's services with absolute precision.
For a relaunch to really work, you need these 4 things to be firing on all cylinders. First, coordination. Every single department has to move as one team. Second, you need flexibility. Things will go wrong, so you have to be ready to adapt and solve problems on the fly. Third, smart financial management. You have to balance the costs without cutting corners on the guest experience. And fourth, and this is huge, visible leadership. Your team and your guests need to see a steady, confident hand at the helm.
In all of this work, it all leads to our final and maybe most important section. This is where we look beyond the immediate relaunch to the ultimate goal, rebuilding trust and resilience. This isn't just about getting back to how things were, it's about using the crisis as a chance to become a stronger, smarter organization for the future.
So, when it's all said and done, after all the checklists, the meetings, the frantic relaunches, what's the one thing that tells you if you've truly succeeded? It's this: trust. Every single action you take, every decision you make has to be aimed at this one goal. Rebuilding trust with your guests, with your team, and with your partners is the only true measure of a successful recovery.
And the million-dollar question is, how do you make that trust last? How do you make sure you're stronger for what happened? You do it through disciplined reflection. And it's so important to understand that this is not about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's a no-fault look at what happened and how your team responded. That process of learning, of documenting what you learned, that's what builds real, lasting resilience. It's what prepares you for whatever challenge comes next.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to take with you, something to really chew on as you build your careers. Anyone can react in the middle of a crisis. It's chaotic, it's instinctual. But recovery, well, that's different. Recovery is a choice. It's deliberate. So ask yourself this: is the true test of a hotel's character and a leader's real ability found not in the storm itself, but in the quiet, deliberate, and humane way it chooses to rebuild? Thank you.